take a moment and look around. Have you ever felt like the world is becoming more irrational? That important decisions are being made without the slightest sense of logic. That absurdity has become the norm. Human stupidity is not just a funny or harmless trait. It's a destructive force. It operates silently, shaping the world we live in. On social media, false information spreads faster than verified facts. In politics, incompetent leaders rise to power and make decisions that affect millions. In daily life, people with no bad intentions still cause harm simply because they don't think about the consequences of their actions. Schopenhauer, one of the great philosophers of pessimism, saw stupidity as one of the main causes of human suffering. He believed that most people act impulsively, without reflection, driven by momentary desires. But Carlo Cipolla, an economist and historian, went even further. He formulated the fundamental laws of human stupidity, showing that stupid people are more dangerous than the malicious ones because they harm others without gaining anything in return. This brings us to the central question of this video. Stupidity is not just an individual flaw, it is a collective force that is corroding society from the inside. If we don't understand how it operates, we are doomed to repeat the same mistakes, generation after generation. So how can we identify and combat stupidity? What can Schopenhauer and Cipolla teach us about this? If there was ever a philosopher who did not hold back in criticizing humanity, it was Arthur Schopenhauer. For him, most people do not act based on reason, but rather on impulses, desires, and fleeting emotions. In his view, the world is not governed by logic or justice, but by the chaos of blind will. And this explains why stupidity is so prevalent. Most people simply do not think. Schopenhauer believed that critical thinking is a rare privilege. In his work, The Art of Writing, he states, "Ordinary people only think about what others think. Meanwhile, the few truly intelligent individuals are those who develop their own perspective on the world." This leads us to a central problem. If the majority doesn't think for themselves, then who actually runs society? Intelligence is no guarantee against stupidity. A common mistake is believing that intelligence prevents stupidity. But Schopenhauer warns us that there is a difference between intelligence and wisdom. Intelligence can be used for anything, including deception, manipulation, and even justifying absurd ideas. Wisdom, however, requires something more: deep reflection, experience, and most importantly, discernment. Schopenhauer argued that cleverness alone does not protect anyone from stupidity. In fact, many of the greatest mistakes in human history were committed by highly intelligent people who allowed themselves to be consumed by empty ideologies, selfish interests, or pure arrogance. Nietzsche, influenced by Schopenhauer, also warned about this danger when he spoke of the morality of the weak, a type of thinking that doesn't seek truth, but rather justifies social conventions and irrational beliefs. Mediocrity as the norm. Another fundamental point in Schopenhauer's philosophy is that mediocrity not only exists, but often prevails. He stated that most people do not seek knowledge or truth. They seek conformity and social acceptance. In a world where intelligence is rare and critical thinking even rarer, it is only natural that the mediocre rise to the top. Despite having unlimited access to information, people are more lost than ever. The internet, instead of enlightening us, has created an environment where superficiality dominates. On social media, baseless opinions carry the same weight as in-depth analysis. In politics, mediocre figures rise to power, not because they are competent, but because they know how to manipulate the irrationality of the masses. Schopenhauer foresaw this phenomenon long before the digital age. He stated that most people are not interested in learning, but only in reaffirming their own beliefs. And this explains why so many bad ideas keep spreading, why so many people follow clearly incompetent leaders. If we look at history, we see that this pattern repeats itself over and over again. The Roman Empire did not collapse overnight. Instead, It fell after decades of increasingly weaker and more corrupt leaders, while the population was distracted by bread and circuses. The same has happened to numerous civilizations throughout history. Whenever mediocre individuals take control, decline becomes inevitable. And today, just look at pop culture. Empty celebrities make millions while teachers, scientists, and philosophers are ignored. Populist politicians make absurd promises and get elected simply because they know how to manipulate people's emotions. People with little knowledge on a subject speak with absolute confidence, while true experts are drowned out by the noise of the crowd. Schopenhauer put it bluntly, the common man is always right because he is the strongest. In other words, when stupidity becomes the norm, fighting against it feels like a lost cause. Is there a solution? If mediocrity triumphs and stupidity dominates the world, what can be done? In the next chapter, we will explore how Carlo Cipolla offers a practical approach to understanding, and perhaps even minimizing, the damage caused by stupid people. If Schopenhauer saw stupidity as a fundamental trait of humanity, Carlo Cipolla took it even further. He attempted to define and classify it in an almost scientific way. In his essay, The Fundamental Laws of Human Stupidity, Cipolla warns us that stupidity is not just an individual flaw, but a true engine of social destruction. The 5 fundamental laws of stupidity. Cipolla formulated 5 laws to explain how stupidity operates. And the more we analyze them, the more we realize they explain a large part of the world's problems. We always underestimate the number of stupid people around us. Stupidity is everywhere and exists at every level of society. We often assume that someone in a position of power or with a degree must be intelligent, but reality proves otherwise. Stupidity is independent of any other characteristic. It has nothing to do with education, social class, or profession. There are brilliant people who act stupidly, just as there are humble people who demonstrate great wisdom. The stupid person harms others without gaining anything in return. This is what makes stupidity so dangerous. Unlike the malicious, who at least seek some kind of personal gain, stupid people harm society for no reason whatsoever. Stupid people are more dangerous than criminals. Why? Because criminals, as bad as they may be, still follow some kind of logic. They are motivated by self-interest. But stupid people create chaos through pure thoughtlessness or an inability to foresee consequences. Stupid people are always underestimated. This is the biggest mistake. We believe we can reason with them, educate them, or neutralize them. But Cipolla shows that this is a dangerous illusion. Stupid people don't follow rational rules, and trying to combat them with logic is often useless. The category of stupid people: chaos without purpose. According to Cipolla, people can be divided into 4 categories. The intelligent benefit themselves while also benefiting others. The naive help others but harm themselves in the process. The bandits benefit themselves at the expense of others. The stupid harm others without gaining anything in return. The last category is the most destructive. Unlike bandits, who at least follow a cost-benefit calculation, stupid people are unpredictable. They sabotage projects, spread misinformation, and create confusion for no logical reason. Think of a driver stopping in the middle of a busy road just to check their GPS, blocking traffic for no personal gain. A co-worker whose incompetence delays a project, making the entire team suffer. These are small-scale examples, but the same logic applies to leaders, politicians, and decision-makers at the highest levels of power. Why is stupidity more dangerous than malice? The problem with malice is that in general, it has limits. A scammer, for example, wants to steal your money, but at least there is a rational goal behind it. A stupid person, however, can cause harm for no reason at all. Cipolla warns that stupid people are more dangerous because they are unpredictable. You can negotiate with a criminal, but you can't negotiate with stupidity. A thief calculates risks and rewards. A stupid person calculates nothing. This explains why civilizations in decline are often not destroyed by external enemies, but by internal incompetence. Governments collapse due to irrational policies. Companies go bankrupt because of absurd decisions. People lose opportunities because they trust logic where none exists. We see his theory in action every day. In politics, many incompetent politicians rise to power not because of merit, but because they know how to exploit the ignorance of the masses. They make disastrous decisions that compromise entire nations. In business, some of the biggest corporate failures happened because of sheer stupidity, not just market conditions. Blockbuster ignored streaming, thinking it was just a fad. Major companies have invested billions in unrealistic ideas and collapsed as a result. In social media, influencers with millions of followers spread misinformation, promote harmful lifestyles, or encourage self-destructive behavior without any real benefit for themselves or their audience. The inevitability of stupidity and the danger of underestimating it. The greatest danger of stupidity is that it cannot be eliminated. There will always be stupid people in every era and every society. But what makes the problem worse is that we underestimate its impact. We think we can predict their actions or minimize their effects, when in reality, their reach can be devastating. Cipolla gives us a clear warning. The greatest mistake we can make is not being stupid ourselves, but ignoring or trying to rationalize stupidity. How can we protect ourselves from stupidity? If stupidity is such a powerful and destructive force, how can we defend ourselves against it? Human stupidity is not just an individual problem. It spreads and infects society as a whole. For Arthur Schopenhauer and Carlo Cipolla, the irrationality of the masses isn't an occasional flaw, but a recurring pattern that can drive entire civilizations to decline. The reason? Most people don't think for themselves. Schopenhauer was one of the first philosophers to argue that rationality is not the dominant force in human nature. To him, we are driven primarily by will, a blind and irrational impulse that makes us act without true reflection. As a result, most people form their opinions based on impulses and social conventions, rather than through critical thinking. As he once said, public opinion is like a wild animal, irrational, unpredictable, and highly influenced by external forces. This explains why so many bad ideas are accepted without question. People tend to follow the crowd, believe whatever is repeated often enough, and reject anything that challenges their existing beliefs. In this way, stupidity spreads like a virus, growing stronger over time. Cipolla and the danger of the stupid. If Schopenhauer saw irrationality as a natural human tendency, Cipolla took it further. He warned that stupidity doesn't just exist, it has the power to destroy entire societies. According to Cipolla's third fundamental law of human stupidity, the stupid are more dangerous than criminals because they harm others without any personal gain. A criminal can be stopped because they act with a predictable motive. They seek personal profit. But a stupid person acts without logic, making their destruction impossible to anticipate. This explains why so many historical disasters weren't caused by evil masterminds, but by incompetent people making terrible decisions without realizing it. The relationship between stupidity and populism. Schopenhauer, with his deeply pessimistic view of humanity, had already predicted the dangers of populism. He argued that mediocrity is often rewarded because the masses prefer easy answers over uncomfortable truths. That's why mediocre leaders and demagogues can manipulate the people with empty promises and catchy slogans. They don't need to be competent. They just need to say what the majority wants to hear. Cipolla's work supports this idea by analyzing how stupid individuals frequently rise to power. Since society underestimates the impact of stupidity, it ends up putting in charge people who make catastrophic decisions without even realizing it. Disinformation and the decline of critical thinking. If there's one phenomenon Schopenhauer despised, it was the manipulation of truth. He argued that truth is rarely accepted immediately because it requires intellectual effort. That's why simple, convenient lies tend to spread faster than well-founded facts. In today's world, this problem has only gotten worse with the explosion of disinformation. Cipolla would add that one of the biggest mistakes a society can make is underestimating the power of the stupid. Many people believe that ignoring stupidity will make it go away. But in reality, the more we allow irrationality to spread, the stronger it becomes, and worse, it starts dictating the direction of society. Social media as an amplifier of stupidity. If Cipolla were alive today, he would probably say that social media is the greatest invention ever created for spreading stupidity. In the digital age, stupidity doesn't just persist, it multiplies exponentially. People who once had little influence can now spread disinformation to millions, and the logic is simple. The more absurd the idea, the more attention it gets. Schopenhauer had already warned that most people prefer illusions over truth. Social media has proven him right. Sensationalized falsehoods spread faster than objective facts. Emotion-driven misinformation gains more engagement than logical analysis. As a result, society becomes increasingly irrational. Collective stupidity and the danger of irrational masses. Schopenhauer had a clear stance on human nature. An individual can be reasonable, but the masses are always irrational. Whenever large groups unite, critical thinking disappears and conformity takes over. Cipolla reinforces this idea, reminding us that collective stupidity is one of the main driving forces behind historical tragedies. Many times, it wasn't a tyrant who brought down a country, but a series of small, foolish decisions made by thousands of ordinary people. This means that the greatest threat to society isn't a single evil villain, but the accumulation of countless small, foolish choices that, over time, cause irreversible damage. How can we resist the spread of stupidity? If stupidity has such a deep impact on society, the final question is there a way to fight back? In the next chapter, we will explore how Schopenhauer and Cipolla can help us escape this trap, or at least minimize its damage. After everything we've explored, it's clear that stupidity is not a problem that can be eradicated, but that doesn't mean we're defenseless. Both Schopenhauer and Cipolla offer us tools to minimize its impact and protect our own clarity of thought. Schopenhauer and the importance of independent thinking. Schopenhauer believed that the only real antidote to stupidity is critical thinking. For him, most people simply repeat ideas without questioning them, blindly accepting social conventions and the opinions of others. He once said, "A man's intelligence is measured by the amount of uncertainty he can handle." This means that to avoid being victims of stupidity, we must question everything, even when the truth is uncomfortable. But independent thinking comes at a cost: resistance and isolation. Most people don't like those who challenge their certainties. However, as Schopenhauer warned, truth passes through 3 stages. First, it is ridiculed, then it is violently rejected. Finally, it is accepted as self-evident. Cipolla teaches us that the best defense against stupidity is not trying to eliminate it, but recognizing it and strategically avoiding it. This means never underestimate stupid people. They will always be present and can cause unpredictable damage. Minimize their influence. Whenever possible, we must ensure they don't make important decisions or hold positions of power. Don't waste time trying to convince them. The biggest mistake people make is believing that stupidity can be fought with rational arguments. Cipolla reminds us that many times this is completely useless. How to identify and deal with stupidity in everyday life. Stupidity manifests in many ways: misinformation, irrational decisions, empty speeches. Inspired by Schopenhauer, we must avoid pointless debates and recognize when dialogue is futile. Even Buddha said, "Do not waste your time debating with fools. They will drag you down to their level and beat you with experience. If there is one thing that Schopenhauer and Cipolla would agree on, it's that intellectual vigilance is an individual duty. Stupidity thrives on passivity and complacency. Being critical, seeking knowledge, and encouraging independent thinking are acts of resistance. As Confucius once said, "He who asks a question is a fool for a moment. He who never asks is a fool forever." Stupidity will never disappear. But if we understand how it works, we can at least protect ourselves from it. Now, the real question is, are you willing to resist, or will you continue being just another piece in this grand theater of mediocrity? If this video made you think, leave a like to help spread this knowledge to more people. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss upcoming videos. We'll keep exploring the wisdom of great thinkers. Stay on the channel and choose your next video to deepen your understanding even further.